Night had draped Backland in an inky veil, the gaslights casting flickering glimmers on the damp cobblestones. Klein Moretti, his face etched with fatigue but his eyes alert, slipped into the narrow alley leading to his building. His dark coat blended with the shadows, his footsteps echoing softly in the silent night. A shiver ran down his spine, a mixture of apprehension and excitement. The cramped apartment was bathed in a warm and welcoming light. The familiar smell of vegetable soup wafted through the air, a soothing balm for Klein's nerves. He shrugged off his coat, tossing it onto the coat rack by the door, all while answering his sister's insistent questions. Held back? By what? "You don't look like you've eaten," observed Melissa, her fine brows furrowing with concern. "I was studying at the library," lied Klein, hoping his calm tone would dispel his sister's suspicions. Lost track of time, reading history books. She knew him too well, could read him like an open book. But he couldn't tell her the truth, not yet. Melissa narrowed her eyes, unconvinced, but didn't press him further. Instead, she served him a steaming bowl of soup, her expression softening. "You have to take care of yourself, Klein," she said gently, placing the bowl in front of him with a serious look. "We can't afford to get sick, not when we're so close to our goal." Klein took a sip of soup, savoring the comforting warmth that spread through his stomach. "Don't worry about me, Melissa," he replied with a weak smile. "I'm stronger than I look." As if to change the subject, Melissa beckoned him closer. "Look what I found!" she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with pride. She crouched down near a small wooden box on the floor. While Melissa marveled at the mechanical turtle, Klein's mind was elsewhere, lost in a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. He thought back to the Nighthawks' proposition, the weight of their offer pressing heavily on his mind. The opportunity they offered him was both tantalizing and terrifying. Joining a secret organization that fought occult forces sounded like a dream come true, or a nightmare waiting to unfold. On the one hand, he was terrified, his heart pounding with fear. He had seen with his own eyes the dangers lurking in the shadows, the malevolent forces that defied comprehension, the unspeakable creatures and rituals that haunted his nightmares. Was he really ready to risk his life, to plunge headlong into a world of darkness and madness, to face the abyss and confront the unknown? He thought of Dunn Smith, the calm and competent detective he had met, whose presence exuded confidence and strength. The detective's unwavering resolve and experience were reassuring. He thought of the power he had felt in the presence of the mystical formula, the ancient knowledge that promised untold power, the promise of power and knowledge that could change his life forever. And he thought of Melissa, her safety and happiness paramount in his mind. His own desire to protect her, to shield her from the dangers of the world, to offer her a better life, free from fear and uncertainty. The decision was made, and with a deep breath, Klein embraced his fate. "Melissa," Klein said slowly, drawing his sister's attention, "I think I've found a way to get us out of poverty." Melissa's eyes widened with hope. "Really? What is it?" "I met someone who works for a security company," explained Klein, choosing his words carefully. "They need administrative staff, someone reliable and discreet. The pay is excellent." He didn't mention the details, nor the true nature of the work. He knew Melissa wouldn't approve, that she would worry about him. But he would reassure her, tell her he wasn't taking any risks. "We can't let this one pass us by." The following afternoon, Klein found himself in front of a filthy, dimly lit tavern in a seedy part of Backlund. The sign above the door was barely legible, ravaged by the elements and neglect. It depicted a grimacing black rat clutching a beer mug in its clawed paw. A pungent odor of cheap beer, stale sweat, and something vaguely foul hung in the air, greeting you like a putrid slap in the face. Klein hesitated for a moment, wondering if he'd made the right choice. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the swinging door and entered the tavern. Klein scanned the room, trying to make out a familiar face through the thick smoke and gloom. His stomach churned as he noticed, in a dark corner near the bar, a sight that sent chills down his spine. 3 burly men, clad in worn leather clothing, stood around a rusty metal cage. Inside, a large brown rat struggled frantically, trying in vain to escape its fate. Klein looked away in disgust. The spectacle was like a punch to the gut, reminding him of the cruelty of which men were capable. Ignoring the disturbing spectacle in the corner, Klein made his way through the noisy crowd to the bar. The barkeep, a massive man with a weather-beaten face and a filthy apron, glared at him. "What can I get you, kid?" he growled, his voice as raspy as a crow's. "I'm looking for Mr. Wright," replied Klein, trying to speak loudly enough to be heard over the din. "I was told I could find him here." The barkeep raised a bushy eyebrow. "Wright, you say? And what business do you have with good old Wright?" "It's a confidential matter," replied Klein, sliding a silver coin across the counter. "Just tell him I received his message." The barkeep pocketed the coin with a satisfied grunt. "Wait here," he said, gesturing to a dark corner with a nod. As Klein waited in the shadowy corner of the tavern, his heart pounded in his chest. The dim light cast eerie shadows on the walls, making the place feel even more foreboding. He felt like an intruder in this den of vice and despair, an innocent lamb among a pack of wolves. The patron's eyes seemed to pierce through him, their whispers filled with malice and suspicion. But he couldn't afford to give in to fear. His resolve had to be stronger than the darkness that surrounded him. He had made his choice, and he would see it through. Every fiber of his being was focused on the mission ahead. He thought back to the conversation he'd had with Dunn Smith the night before. The detective's words echoed in his mind, a mixture of caution and encouragement. The detective had given him precise instructions on how to contact him, explaining that he was to go to the Black Rat and ask for a certain Mr. Wright. The name alone sent shivers down Klein's spine. It was a test, Dunn had told him, a way to gauge his determination and discretion. Klein knew that this was more than just a simple task. It was a rite of passage into a world shrouded in mystery. Klein knew that every step he took brought him closer to the dangerous world of the Nighthawks. The air grew colder, and the streets seemed to narrow as he approached the tavern. But he was ready to face the darkness, to embrace the unknown. His mind was set, and his heart, though racing, was steadfast. He had to protect Melissa, even if it meant risking his own soul. The thought of his sister gave him strength, a beacon of light in the encroaching darkness. He would not falter, not now, not ever. Suddenly, a hand landed on his shoulder. Klein jumped, spinning around to face a tall, thin man in a long black coat. His face was partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, but Klein could see his piercing eyes staring at him intently. "Mr. Moretti, I presume?" said the man in a low, gravelly voice. "Yes, that's me," replied Klein, his heart pounding. "And you must be—" "Call me Wright." The man cut him off with an enigmatic smile. "Follow me. We have much to discuss." Without another word, Wright turned and headed for a back door at the rear of the tavern. Klein hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and followed him. He felt that his life was about to change forever. The back door led to a dark, narrow alleyway, its cobblestones slick with recent rain and the dim lighting casting eerie shadows on the walls. Wright turned to face Klein, his face half hidden in shadow, the dim light accentuating the sharp angles of his features. "Before we go any further, Mr. Moretti," he said, his voice barely a murmur, "I must ask if you are absolutely certain you wish to embark on this path. This is not a decision to be taken lightly." Klein met Wright's piercing gaze, his heart pounding in his chest. The weight of the decision pressed heavily on him, but he felt a strange sense of destiny pulling him forward. He knew this was his last chance to turn back, to return to his ordinary life. The life he had known was safe, predictable, but it lacked the thrill and purpose he craved. But he also knew it would only be a matter of time before the darkness caught up with him. The shadows of his past were always lurking, waiting for a moment of weakness. He was already involved, and he could no longer ignore the call of adventure. The allure of the unknown, the promise of something greater, was too strong to resist. "I'm ready," declared Klein, his voice firm and resolute. He felt a surge of determination, a newfound strength in his decision. "I want to join the Nighthawks." The words hung in the air, a declaration of his commitment to a new path, a new identity. A faint smile touched Wright's lips, a sign of approval and perhaps a hint of pride. He had seen many come and go, but there was something different about Klein. "Very well," he said. "Follow me, Mr. Moretti. A new world awaits." His voice carried a promise of adventure, of challenges and rewards beyond imagination. And with those words, Wright turned and plunged into the dark labyrinth of the city, Klein at his heels. The night was alive with possibilities, the air thick with anticipation. He was ready to become a Nighthawk. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Klein felt a sense of purpose and excitement that he had never known before. This was his moment, his chance to embrace a new destiny.